Thank you very much. I did think I was actually speaking after break, so I apologise. I haven't got my lipstick on or anything. I'm sure the filming, though, won't capture it. But I've been asked to talk about the appraisal of medical devices, and we have heard quite a lot about this already, especially last night from Jim Dornan and again from Mike Robson. But I first want to ask you a question and ask you how you define a medical device, because it's something that I really had to think about when I was asked to do this talk. What do you consider to be a medical device? And I don't need you to shout out the answer, I just want you to think in your own minds how you define this. And I think that the thing is that there's a number and range of medical devices. It's absolutely vast, and sometimes we do think about the more technological things, ultrasound, scan, etc. But there's a huge continuum of devices. A medical device actually includes most healthcare products other than medicines. And they're used for the diagnosis, prevention, monitoring and treatment of disease, injury or disability. And this is a definition by the MRHA. If we look at some generic examples of medical devices, you can see the vast range here. From first aid bandages, ECG machines, even spectacles are classified as a medical device, and thermometers. In maternity, again, a huge range, and we've heard about many of these already. But things like incubators, that's actually classified as a medical device. Ultrasound is probably more obvious, catheters and TENS. And I'm going to use TENS shortly as an example of a medical device, and I'm going to share with you how we actually appraise that device. If we go back first to the MHRA, this is the regulating body of medical devices, which was set up in 2003. It's an agency of the Department of Health, and this is what they say, that their job is to enhance and safeguard the health of the public by ensuring that medicines and medical devices work and are acceptably safe. No product is risk-free. Underpinning all our work lie robust and fact-based judgments to ensure that the benefits to patients and the public justify the risks. And I've highlighted work and are acceptably safe because I think these are the two most important elements when we appraise any medical devices. They have to work, so they have to be fit for purpose, but they also have to be acceptable to those that are using them, and that is the health professionals and obviously the women too. So how do we appraise these devices? Well, there are three main principles. There's the efficacy, which I'm sure we all know is the ability of an intervention to produce the desired beneficial effect in expert hands and under ideal circumstances. The effectiveness, which is the ability of an intervention to produce the desired beneficial effect in actual usage. And then the acceptability, which is multifaceted really, which looks at accessibility, the cost, the quality, the results, the convenience, and of course attitudes, because we will all interpret these things differently depending on our own context, on our own beliefs. So I'm going to move on to the exemplar, and I'm going to use the TENS, and for the non-midwives, this is transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. And I know that many of you will know what TENS is, but I know that there are some non-midwives in the audience, and I can see one nodding near the background. But I did hear that even the audio-visual guy, he said that his wife had used TENS, so it is something that we are all quite familiar with. But TENS is a mobile device used by women to help to relieve pain. It delivers electrical signal through electrode pads, which usually are placed on the back, and they stimulate the nerves under the skin. And the electrodes go over the spinal nerve roots of T10 to L1 and S2 to S4. And there's lots of various machines and different models, but they all basically do the same thing. The signals work in two ways. or so we think. There's no real strong evidence base on this, but it's thought that they block transmission of pain signals travelling in nearby nerves, stopping them going through the spinal cord to the brain, so they stop the messages. But they also send out their own messages to the brain, triggering the release of endorphin, which we all know is the body's own natural painkiller. But first, before I show you how we appraise the TENS, I want to share this quote with you here, which came from the Complementary and Alternative Medicines report, which was on their website recently. And this is just the end of a quote that they actually displayed on the website. And they said, "Isn't there enough to do during labour and delivery without adding to the confusion by sticking little electrodes on the skin?" And I just wondered what you all think about that. Do you think that we should be supporting the use of TENS in clinical practice? And I'd just like a little show of hands. How many of you think that we should be supporting the use of TENS? Thank you. Does anybody disagree with the use of TENS and support the statement? Anybody brave enough to put up the hand? Yeah? Okay, that's good. Well, I will come back to that quote later, so bear that in mind. So why did we decide as a team to appraise TENS? Well, TENS is one of those things that's been used in childbirth for over 40 years. And like many things in maternity care, it was introduced originally without any real empirical evidence. TENS is used by approximately 16% of women, and some people would say it's used by more than that. There are conflicting views of its effectiveness, and an earlier systematic review suggested that it didn't have any real value in terms of relieving pain, but that review was conducted in 1997, and things have moved on a little bit since then. But the NICE guidelines, the intrapartum care guidelines in the UK, they actually recommended, based on the Carroll review, that it should not be used in established labour. So we decided we want to explore this a little bit further, and our questions were these. Do women actually want to use it? Because no point continuing if it's not something that's acceptable. Do health professionals support its use? Because obviously they're an important part of this whole picture. Does it do more good than harm? And this relates to the key principles in the Cochrane collaboration. And I know that we'll hear a lot more about that tomorrow when Professor Jim Nielsen speaks. And does it do the job that it's supposed to do? So is it fit for purpose? So these are all important questions in appraising TENS. So first of all, do women want to use it? And this is quite an easy one. Women do use it. And women even use it when it's not available in the hospitals. They're prepared to pay for it. They go to Boots and buy it. They go to Tesco's. They go on Amazon. It's freely available and they do use it. There's a huge market out there for TENS. But more importantly, perhaps, is that they use it more than once. So they'll use it in labour once and then they'll use it for a second labour. So in many ways, women do vote with their feet, and if they're going to be prepared to use it more than once, then to me that is saying something. Do health professionals support it? Well, the next thing we did was we conducted a survey of all maternity units in England, and you can see here the breakdown of the various areas. You can see that we had a good response rate from the northwest. I'm not saying that I bullied any of the participants there, but we actually asked all the heads of midwifery to either complete the survey themselves or to pass it to somebody that they felt was more appropriate. So in many ways it was a consultant midwife or the labour ward facilitator that actually completed the questionnaire. But we did get a fairly healthy response rate of 139. And this is what we found. Every single unit said that they did support the use of TENS. And this survey was carried out after the NICE guidelines, incidentally. So this was despite the NICE guidelines saying that it should not be used in established labour. All saw some benefit to TENS, and these were the kind of things that they told us in their open responses. They supported the fact that it enabled women to mobilise. It gave an extra choice for women. It allowed women to be in control. They all commented on it's particularly useful in early labour, and they felt that it delayed or reduced the need for other analgesia. All the units provided women with information on TENS, and this came in various formats: parent education, one-to-one with midwives, or leaflets. So there is resources invested in the use of TENS in units. Over half of the units actually provided the TENS machines, and training was offered in some units, although that was a minority. About 15% of units trained midwives formally in the use of TENS. One of the issues that was highlighted was that the actual use of TENS in labour was very rarely recorded. So when we asked how many women actually use TENS in their units, that in most cases it was just an estimate. And this ranged from 1% right up to 25%. And the majority of the respondents said that they felt that we really needed a robust randomised controlled trial to be able to discover the effectiveness. So after confirming that it seemed that women do actually like the TENS, and health professionals clearly in terms of midwifery seemed to support it, then we needed to look at the existing evidence to see, does it actually do more good than harm? So to do this, we decided to embark on another Cochrane review, so we were updating the previous Cochrane review. I know that the majority of you know what a Cochrane review is, but as a new Cochrane editor, I feel that I need to give you this information, that it's a systematic assessment of evidence of the effects of healthcare interventions, and its whole purpose is to be able to provide information on which health professionals and consumers can make decisions. So this was the objective of our review, is to assess the effects of TENS on pain in labour. Quite straightforward, clear objective. And this was our search methods, which I'll talk you through. The Cochrane Pregnancy and Childbirth Group are quite unique in that they have their own trials register. So they continuously collect all the trials related to pregnancy and maternity. So they have a huge amount of data there, unlike many of the other Cochrane groups. And what they do is they have quarterly searches of the register of controlled trials, they have weekly searches of Medline, they hand search 30 journals and proceedings of all the major conferences, and they also have weekly alerts from things like Biomed Central. And we didn't apply any restrictions in terms of language to our search. We just wanted any papers that were out there related to TENS. In terms of our selection criteria, we wanted all the randomised controlled trials because we know that's the gold standard. And we looked at different comparisons, TENS versus routine care, TENS versus placebo, because some of the studies we know have used a kind of sham TENS, and TENS versus pharmacological analgesia. And these are the papers that we actually found. We actually initially found 25 papers, and of those we actually excluded 6 of the trials for different reasons. One trial we excluded because it just looked at TENS following caesarean section. One we excluded because it only looked at the strength of contractions and no other outcomes.